It was my choice, not hers. We talk every day. I love this woman. Still do. It's just something I have to do for myself. Those words, said decades after the divorce was finalized, tell you everything. The man who wrote the world's most romantic love songs couldn't stay married. The man who sang about destiny and forever sacrificed his family for his career. And the man who made millions on songs about love spent decades running from it. This is the untold story of Paul Anka, not the teen idol, not the songwriter who helped create Frank Sinatra's My Way, but the man behind closed doors, the father who wasn't there, the husband who chose the stage over his family, and the person who, at the end of it all, had to reckon with what his success actually cost. Welcome back to RetroWaves. Today we're talking about the hidden cost of fame and how one of pop music's greatest songwriters became one of its greatest cautionary tales. To understand Paul Anka's fall, you have to understand his rise, and it wasn't gradual, it was meteoric. Born July 30th, 1941, in Ottawa, Canada, Paul Albert Anka grew up in the back room of his father's restaurant, the Lacanda. His parents were Lebanese immigrants who had built a life from nothing. His mother, Camelia, was his first believer, the one who told him that the more unlikely your dreams, the more fiercely you have to pursue them. By 13, Paul had formed his own vocal group called the Bobby Soxers. He was relentless, driven by something most kids his age couldn't understand. At 14, he collected soup can labels for 3 months to win a Campbell's soup contest. The prize? A trip to New York City. That trip changed everything. He saw the music industry up close and came back to Ottawa, a different kid. At 15, Paul convinced his parents to let him travel to Los Angeles. He hitchhiked to a meeting with Modern Records and recorded his first single. It went nowhere, but he didn't care. He was just getting started. A year later, in 1957, Paul returned to New York with a batch of songs he'd written himself. He walked into the office of Don Costa at ABC Paramount Records. Costa listened to him play on the piano. Then called in his colleagues. Within days, Paul's father was signing a contract on behalf of his son, who was still a minor. The label chose to release a song called Diana as his first single. Stay by me, Diana. It was about a girl he barely knew, an 18-year-old babysitter from his church. He had a crush on her. She didn't know he existed, so he wrote a song about it. It didn't just become a hit, it became a phenomenon. Diana sold over 20 million copies worldwide. It hit #1 in both the US and Canada. Within weeks, the 16-year-old Paul Anka was traveling the world, performing with the biggest names in rock and roll, being screamed at by crowds of teenage girls. He would later reflect, "My life as a teenager ended at 16. I went into another sphere. That's not poetic language, that's a confession." His childhood ended the moment Diana hit the charts. Within 2 years, he had 4 more top 20 hits. Lonely Boy. I'm just a lonely boy, lonely and blue. Put Your Head on My Shoulder. Put your head on my shoulder. You Are My Destiny. You are my destiny. He was touring constantly with Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis. He was performing in venues where exotic dancers headlined. He was writing songs that made teenagers faint. He was untouchable in public, but in private, he was incredibly lonely. Interestingly, despite all this success, his hometown of Ottawa didn't embrace him. In 1956, he performed at a local show, and the crowd booed him. They ridiculed him. He was so hurt that he refused to perform in Ottawa for decades. Then came the British invasion, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Suddenly, the sweet romantic crooner sound was out of fashion. Careers that seemed unstoppable were suddenly over. But Paul Anka evolved. He transitioned from teen idol to songwriter, and that's where his genius truly emerged. He wrote My Way for Frank Sinatra. That song became one of the most recorded tracks in history. It's been covered by everyone from Elvis Presley to Sid Vicious. That song alone would generate royalties for the rest of his life. He wrote She's a Lady for Tom Jones. I'm talking about that little lady. He wrote the theme for The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, a theme played over 1.4 million times. He co-wrote songs with Michael Jackson that would become posthumous hits years later. By his mid-20s, Paul wasn't just a survivor. He was a musical powerhouse, but success has a price, and that price was being collected every single day. In 1960, Paul Anka was filming The Longest Day in San Juan, Puerto Rico. One day, he saw a young woman. Her name was Anne de Zogheb. She was 18. He was 22. Anne was beautiful, impossibly beautiful. She had been discovered by Paris Match magazine. She had modeled for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. She had walked runways for Chanel, Balenciaga, and Dior. The daughter of a Lebanese diplomat, she had been raised in Egypt and educated in European convent schools. And when Paul saw her, he was smitten instantly. But Anne didn't care about Paul Anka, at least not at first. She remembered him only as the musician she'd been forced to listen to in her convent school. The nuns wouldn't allow Elvis Presley because he was too suggestive. But Paul's music? That was acceptable. Paul was persistent. He charmed her. He showed her a side of himself that wasn't the public persona. And slowly, Anne fell in love. Eileen Ford, Anne's agent and guardian, did not approve. She had seen too many models get swept up in celebrity relationships. She tried to protect Anne, but Anne was headstrong. She moved out of Ford's house and continued to see Paul. On February 16, 1963, at Orly Airport in Paris, they got married. Anne gave up her modeling career. Just like that. She walked away from Vogue covers, from runway shows, from a career that could have made her a legend. She gave up her life in Europe. She became Mrs. Paul Anka, and for a time, they were genuinely happy. They moved to New York, where Anne became involved in the art world. She started collecting contemporary art, befriending gallerists like Paula Cooper, who was pioneering the Soho art scene. Art became her outlet, her passion, her identity beyond being Paul Anka's wife. They had 5 daughters together: Alexandra, Amelia, Anthea, Amanda, and Alicia. Beautiful girls, smart girls, strong girls, girls who grew up in privilege but also in the shadow of their father's fame, constantly waiting for him to come home, except he never really did. Paul would later admit, "I did my best, but I was traveling 200 days a year. 200 days, out of 365, that's more than half the year, gone." Anne raised the girls while Paul chased hits. Anne managed the household while Paul wrote songs for Sinatra. Anne sacrificed her career while Paul built an empire. And for decades she did it without complaint. She was the mother and the father. She was the one at school events. She was the one tucking the girls in. She was the one holding the family together while Paul was busy being Paul Anka. The family moved from New York to Carmel, California, then to Los Angeles in 1990, and somewhere in those years, somewhere in the endless cycle of Paul leaving and coming back, something broke. The sources are vague. They always are with celebrities. But there was infidelity. There was betrayal. There was the kind of wound that doesn't heal. Paul filed for divorce on June 26, 1994. They had been married for 31 years. But it took 6 more years for the divorce to be finalized. In October 2000, after 37 years of marriage, it was officially over. Paul was 59 years old. When Paul spoke about it publicly in 2002, his guilt was unmistakable. He told the Globe and Mail, "It's the hardest thing you do. It was my choice, not hers. We talk every day. I love this woman. Still do. It's just something I have to do for myself. Your kids are gone. The house changes. And I can't honestly be in something, whether it's a marriage or whatever, and be dishonest to a threshold that I don't like." Translation: he stayed too long. He came home too late. And when he finally did come home, it was to a life that no longer fit. He chose his freedom over his marriage. Anne died on March 29, 2017, at age 74. She never remarried. She spent the rest of her life as an art collector in Los Angeles, building a museum-quality collection. She bought large-scale works by Christopher Wool and Albert Oehlen. She found fulfillment in something other than the man she'd sacrificed everything for, but the damage to the daughters was already done. They grew up with an absent father and a mother holding the family together alone. One daughter, Amanda Anka, became an actress and producer. She married Jason Bateman in 2001. Another daughter, Anthea, became a screenwriter. After Anne died, Anthea wrote a tribute revealing their mother loved us girls fiercely and raised 5 strong, assertive, curious, vibrant women. The subtext was clear. She did it alone. The irony is almost too painful. Paul Anka spent his career writing the most romantic love songs in history, songs about destiny, about forever, about never wanting to sleep alone, and all the while he was living the exact opposite of what he was singing. At age 67, Paul married Anna Aberg, a Swedish model 30 years younger, who was his personal trainer. They married in Sardinia, Italy. Paul later described their relationship as just a casual encounter. He said he was informed she was pregnant. They had a son, Ethan, but the relationship deteriorated almost immediately. In 2009, just 1 year after the wedding, Paul filed for divorce. What followed was ugly. There was a custody battle. Anna lost custody. She still speaks to Swedish media about being kept from her son. Another marriage, another failure, another family torn apart. Then in 2016, at age 75, Paul married actress Lisa Pemberton, 12 years younger. They had dated for 6 years. At the wedding, 11-year-old Ethan walked his stepmother down the aisle. It was a sweet moment, but that marriage didn't survive either. They divorced in 2020. Paul has said he pulled out his birth certificate one day and told Lisa, "See this? How much longer do I have? I can't live like this anymore." 3 marriages, 6 children, and a lifetime of romantic songs he couldn't live up to. In 2015, Paul reflected on his first marriage with clarity that only comes with age. He said, "When you're married to a teen idol, it's probably not going to work." He wasn't making an excuse. He was stating a fact about fame itself. Fame demands everything. It requires you to sacrifice the people closest to you. It asks you to choose between being there and being great. And most of the time, you can't be both. Paul Anka chose greatness, and he's lived with the consequences ever since. Today, Paul Anka is 83 years old. He's still performing, still writing, still recording duets with contemporary artists. He released Making Memories in 2021, and he's already working on his next album. He's with a woman named Michele Kahl now, and he's made it clear he won't marry again. He still exercises every day. He drinks a bowl of olive oil each morning and eats blueberries to stay healthy. He's never smoked. He's never had hard alcohol. At 83, he still has the bright-eyed energy of someone decades younger. Paul Anka never lost his talent. He never stopped working. He's still charting in his 80s, a feat almost no artist has achieved. He's one of the most successful songwriters in history. His songs have been recorded by everyone from Elvis to Michael Jackson to Drake, but he lost something else. He lost the years he could have spent at the dinner table with his daughters. He lost the bedtime stories. He lost the recitals and graduations and quiet moments that make a family. He lost the woman who gave up everything for him. When you look at his legacy now, it's complicated. His music is timeless, his influence undeniable. But when his daughters look back, they don't see a legend. They see a father who chose the road over home. That's not an indictment, that's reality. And it's a reality Paul himself has had to accept. My Way, the song Paul wrote for Frank Sinatra in 1969, became a global phenomenon. It's been recorded over 1,500 times. Millions of people have sung those words, "I did it my way," and Paul Anka did it his way. He became one of the most successful artists in music history. He survived when most of his peers didn't. He reinvented himself multiple times. He stayed relevant across 7 decades. But there's a cost to doing it your way when your way means being absent. There's a consequence to choosing the spotlight over the home. There's a reckoning that comes for everyone who trades their family for their fame, and Paul Anka has had that reckoning. Paul Anka's story isn't tragic. He's had an extraordinary life. He's achieved things most people only dream about. He's wealthy, successful, still vital in his 80s. But his story is a warning. It's a reminder that success isn't measured only in chart positions and sold-out stadiums. It's measured in the people who wait for you at home, in the birthdays you attend, in the dinners you don't miss, in the moments you're actually present for. The untold story of Paul Anka is the story of a man who had to learn that lesson too late. He's accepted it now. He's made peace with it, but the cost was his family, and that's something no amount of success can ever replace. If you love this story, Make sure you're subscribed to RetroWaves so you never miss an untold story. Drop a comment below. Who's next? Who's the music legend you want us to explore? Is it someone whose personal life revealed the cost of their genius? Someone who made the same choice Paul Anka made? Or someone who chose differently? Tell us, and don't forget to turn on notifications, because these stories matter, not just for nostalgia, but because they remind us what it actually takes to create the music that defines our lives. And sometimes, what it takes is everything. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.